Good morning, everyone. We are going to wait maybe about 30 seconds for everyone to join. Happy December. I do hope you are doing well. Welcome to our check-in for the month of December. We're going to wait just a few more seconds for everyone to come in. Happy Wednesday. Hope you're doing well. If you want to say hello in the chat, it's always great to see people on. If you want to say happy holidays or I'm full from Thanksgiving. It was great to see folks at the conference as well. And we will go ahead and get started because we have quite a full agenda today. Good morning, Jill. Good morning, everyone. All right, so as you're saying hello and coming in, if you want to say hello in the chat, putting your name in your program, it's great to see you. And welcome to our monthly membership check-in for MACAE for the month of December 2022. It's hard to believe that we are about ready to turn the calendar into a new year and that the numbers just keep getting higher and higher and higher. Goodness, I remember, Y2K, and here we are, 23 years later here, going into a new year. So welcome again. We've got lots of great information and updates for you this morning. I want to share those with you. I would like to extend a welcome to anyone that is new this time. If there's any new members that are joining us, you would like to say hello in the chat. And I'd also just like to thank everyone for joining us last month for our annual conference. It was a great convening after 2 years of awesome virtual conferences. It was so nice to just be back in person and see people. I hope many of you felt like it was kind of an old family reunion. You had to walk 2 steps and see somebody that you haven't seen in a while, or you saw on Zoom, they look familiar, they look a little taller or shorter than maybe what you've seen on Zoom. And it was just so nice to connect with everyone and see everyone. And I'm so grateful for you all for coming. And I hope that you enjoyed the presentations and the speakers. And we will also be sharing out a link soon with all of the presenter information from the conference for those that attended. So thanks again. So I always like to start with kind of a little reflection. I will say that this one maybe is a little more tongue-in-cheek than inspirational for this month. But Andy Rooney, if you're familiar with him from 60 Minutes, was a journalist, and he's reflecting in this one about the holiday season. I think many of us are feeling the push and pull of the holidays coming up, and our to-do list that's about a mile long, and you gotta, make the cookies for the mailman, and you gotta buy the gift certificate for your barista at the coffee shop, and all of those things. And so Andy kind of helps put it into a little bit of perspective with a little dry sense of humor, which I enjoy myself. So I'll share that video with you quickly. And then if you could put in the chat that you can hear the sound, that would be great.
And now a few minutes with Andy Rooney.
I get a lot of Christmas catalogs with hundreds of gift ideas in them, and I like getting them because there are always a lot of ideas for things I don't want. Brookstone says they'll give me $20 free if I buy $100 worth of their stuff. Well, why don't they just charge me $80 for it? Wisteria says that if I spend $200, they'll give me 20% off my next order. Wait right there, Wisteria. Over 450 great gifts under $30. Maybe I'll take one of each of those. Would that be just $30? Highlights, whatever Highlights is, says it'll give you a 2009 hidden pictures calendar with every order. I'd want to see a couple of the hidden pictures first. What would a hidden picture be anyway? Museum store, I guess they sell museums. Maybe I'll buy a couple of museums. Holiday jewelry. This is a Sears catalog. Sears. Whatever happened to Roebuck? You never hear Sears Roebuck anymore. Call if you're out there, Roebuck. I don't want the ring, but I wouldn't mind having her teeth. This catalog offers free fudge. I haven't had any good fudge in years, and I doubt I'd like their free fudge either. Free is the worst kind of fudge. This ad says that these cocktail napkins made us laugh out loud. Now, one of the last things I want is a funny cocktail napkin. Just give me a drink, please. Here's a pair of marshmallow roasters. I like roasting marshmallows, but I don't have a fire very often. Now, this is something I'd really like one of, too, maybe. A pocket-sized germ-eliminating light. I've always wanted a pocket-sized light that would eliminate germs. It's guaranteed to eliminate 99.9% of all bacteria. Maybe one of my kids will give me this for Christmas. They're good to me. I like Christmas presents. My father and mother gave me a train when I was 12 that actually ran on a track. Maybe that was the best gift I ever got. Don't give me anything this year, though. The chances are, if I want it, I already bought it.
Just a little humor for you in the morning. Hopefully those holiday lists are not too crazy for everyone. And sometimes the simplest gift is the best, right? Someone probably already has what they might need. And so just time spent together and a message from you might just be what they need to. So without further ado, I would like to turn this over to Tad Wamister. He is our partner at NGen, and he was one of our diamond sponsors for the fall conference. And at the last moment, he wasn't able to attend the conference, not because of his own choosing, but because of some other circumstances. And so we wanted to give the opportunity for Tad to talk about NGen. It's a new product coming into Michigan, and I really would like to share this with you all. I think what's so important is we want to thank Tad and NGen for their support of the conference and in all aspects and being a part of there. We shared his message. He also presented at the conference as well, and we appreciate that. And I want to turn it over to him and just thank him for his support of MACAE and our continued partnership as we learn more about NGen and what it can do for learners across our state. So I'll turn it over to you, Tad.
Thank you. And good morning to everyone. Let me get my screen up. I have got a couple of slides to share. I want to talk through a presentation. I'm giving you a brief from a session that I did at the Association for Career and Technical Education conference last week. There is a renewed focus on on-ramps and diversity and inclusion in career and technical education, which is a real opportunity for your clients and the folks you serve. As Patrick mentioned, I'm Tad Wamister. I'm Director of Partnership Development. I've been with NGen for almost 4 years. It'll be 4 years in January. And I've been working with immigrant and refugee populations for about 15 years, including some deep partnerships in Michigan. When I was with Upwardly Global, we worked with the Office of Global Michigan, and we continue to support refugee career pathway programs, workplace literacy programs in the state. And why is this so important? Well, there are a lot of jobs out there. In fact, it's the first time in 3 decades that there are more jobs than job seekers. So how are we helping individuals who are non-native English speakers connect with these training opportunities? Because there often is a minimum proficiency requirement in order to participate. And there are many opportunities to create those on-ramps. You know, when we think of language learning as skills acquisition, and context for language learning is so important. That's why everything at NGen is
And if we replace the water heater entirely.
So what is NGen? Well, we are a social impact organization. We have a strong focus on our mission, which is breaking down barriers to English language learning. We only reach a fraction of, the adult English language learners in this country who need help because of transportation barriers, childcare barriers, irregular work schedules. So how are we thinking about, creating blended workplace literacy programs and earn and learn models that allow more English language learners to participate and connect with those career training? And we have an always growing catalog of courses. We are right now adding English for drone operators and English for EMTs. So there's typically 2 new pathways every month on the NGen platform, and it's all created from real world content. So it is authentic. It's, video clips and audio clips and news articles that are transformed into language lessons. There are even new lessons every day on current events. And so Engine can be used as a bridge to career pathways. So common use cases are workplace literacy programs, so a blended intervention that allows more flexibilities for people across shifts and programs to participate. Adult education, career pathway programs, maybe it's, a focused, certified nursing assistant, IET, or an on-ramp to CTE and apprenticeships. Citizenship is not a requirement for apprenticeship at the federal level. There's some misconceptions there. So want to think about how to create more on-ramps for English language learners into apprenticeship, as well as entrepreneurship. There's a lot of data that supports that immigrants and refugees are more entrepreneurial, and some of the largest corporations in this country have been started by new Americans. I mentioned we're creating something new every month. So this is just the content that we added to our platform over the past 20 months. So, whether it's manufacturing content, phlebotomy, welding, construction, English for commercial driver's license, we're always adding new pathways that are in demand. We recently added English for internationally trained professionals, so some custom content for that population. And I wanted to highlight just one program example. This is in Lake Tahoe. They have a large number of seasonal workers. They have a lot of English language learners who are employees at the different, resorts. And they did get a grant for ski lift maintenance operation. And they wanted to create more diversity and inclusion for this program. So we created an on-ramp for them, Introduction to Ski Lift Maintenance. So this can provide someone with the language learning and the vocabulary that they need so that they can succeed in that program. Really exciting, and we want to do more with pre-apprenticeships. So if anyone on the call is interested in pre-apprenticeships, please send me an email, similarly about workplace literacy. And last slide, before I pass it back over to Patrick. This is a graphic that is helping to describe how we are working with some community colleges that are essentially serving some recruiting functions for large employers, hospital, manufacturing. But the education shouldn't stop there. When individuals have language learning needs, provide them with coaching, support, and blended workplace literacy programs so that they can gain skills, improve their language, and connect with career advancement opportunities and training opportunities that exist for incumbent workers. So thank you for giving me a couple minutes of your time this morning. I'm going to put my email in the chat. Of course, it is here on the screen. So if anyone would like to talk about workplace literacy, career pathways, pre-apprenticeships, please don't hesitate to reach out.
Thank you, Tad. Do we have any questions for Tad? I see one in the chat, the usual question about costs. I know that you can work with those providers on those, I know.
Yeah, so I can just give you a starting price point because it is based on volume. But currently for the minimum volume, it's $131 per annual seat. And those are transferable, so you can use those with multiple students over the year. They include all of the content and all of the support. So happy to share more about that in a follow-up conversation.
Any other questions?
What's involved in the support, please?
What is that?
What is involved in the support?
So we do training for teachers and configure the platform for different profiles of learners. There might be a certified nursing assistant, configuration that's assigning some of that content. There might be another pathway for commercial driver's license. So we can configure it for different classes and different profiles of students. We do monthly professional development for teachers, and we have a the Engine Resource Center, which has all of these different recorded trainings, as well as resources to help you, to help use with your learners.
Thank you, Ted.
Other questions? Looks like Marcus has one, Tad, about they currently offer IET and workplace literacy. Could this program be integrated into those? Or
Yes.
best is it? Oh, great.
Absolutely. The content, we've got a digital platform, we've got content, but then, there would be the opportunity to deliver, some face-to-face training that aligns with that, assigning the content as homework or self-study opportunities. So would love to think about how this could be integrated into current workplace literacy models.
Yeah, Mike, do you have a question?
Yeah, Ted, how is this different than what the career tech centers offer in general?
I mean, we work with a lot of career and technical centers. So we provide, contextualized English language learning courses for different professions. So this can allow a teacher who doesn't necessarily have subject matter expertise in manufacturing or healthcare to deliver that on-ramp program. So we have a lot of that content that is ready to go out of the box. So it allows, a teacher who, may not have expertise in healthcare and manufacturing to deliver some contextualized courses or classes in those different areas.
All right, so you're talking about the training for the ESL teachers while they prepare students to go to the CT classes.
Yeah, this is a training, it's for the learners.
Gotcha. Okay. Thank you.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Tad. We appreciate your time. We wanted to give NGen the wonderful opportunity to share with us. And here's Tad's information again, and we'll share out his contact when we send out the recording and the information from today. And I look forward to continuing to work with NGen. We've got some things prepared on the horizon as we go into 2023, and Tad will be a part of that with us to share what NGen is doing in other states and what we could possibly do here in Michigan. So thank you so much, Tad, for being here.
Thank you.
All right. I did also want to highlight some good news that we wanted to share and offer a time for anyone to share any good news. But two important things that I wanted to share was the week of our conference. Even though it was a busy week, many of us returned to the workplace and had some major events happening and going on. I know that Sayre Metro had a job fair that was happening that week. I know that the Washtenaw Community College had a college night and kind of an interest night on the campus that week. And I also wanted to spotlight that Zaman International was spotlighted as a part of their partnership on apprenticeship with SEMCA during the week of November 14th, which was National Apprenticeship Week. And most recently, Kimberly Williams, director at the Dominican Literacy Center, was nominated to the Cranes List magazine in Detroit for a 2022 Notable Woman in Nonprofit Leadership. So congratulations to everyone for the hard work that they're doing. But I wanted to spotlight Gigi, Salka, and Zaman, as well as Kimberly Williams at Dominican for their efforts and their hard work. And we are preparing a December newsletter that will kind of go more in depth to some of those stories. But any other good news that others would like to raise up or share? Yes, thank you, Karen. And it was on my list and I forgot, but Oakland Literacy nominated Irene Sinclair, who's been a longtime adult education educator. She worked in the Detroit Public Schools Community District Adult Education Program for many, many years, was a member of the ESL Professional Advisory Committee, and now is working with Oakland Literacy. She was nominated for a Governor's Service Award and also received that award. So we want to congratulate Irene and Oakland Literacy for that. Any other news? The only other news that I will share is I saw Brian Puffer. He's in his Celine Amazing Blue, and I should say, go Blue, Big Ten champions, gotta say. Should have started off with that. quickly, this was in our most recent MACAE Monday update, but we've dropped another episode of our MACAE member profile series. This time where we interviewed Chad Zitterkoff at the Westwood Academy. And so it's a lovely conversation with Chad about his time and his work there. And I'd encourage you to listen to it. Again, these are just series profiling members of our association and the hard work that they do. And if I do reach out to you, please accept that invitation. It's a pretty easy conversation. It's a great listening opportunity for me. And it's a great opportunity just to spotlight the hard work that we all do each and every day. So thank you, Chad, for accepting that and to be able to go out and do that. The member profiles are on our MACAE YouTube page. So if you go to the MACAE YouTube page, you'll be able to see that, and we'll send that information out. A few updates for you. There are quite a few as we go throughout the next couple of slides, talking about the different facets and the different information concerning the different areas of our association. And I first wanted to just start with our community education partners. There are two really kind of important informational pieces that I think that you should know about if you don't already. The first is that within the last week, the Michigan Department of Education released a new report around accountability and supports for low-performing schools. And a large number, about 30% more than the previous year, of school districts in Michigan were added as low or buildings were added as low-performing schools. It was a little bit of a shock in the education space across the state. We obviously knew the impact of the pandemic and what that has meant for reading and numeracy skills for children and youth in the K-12 system. But it was a little bit of a shock to see the large number increase of low-performing schools across the state. So I really think that this could be a great opportunity to dial in and talk to district leadership if you're in a community education programming about how to support some of that work. There are additional dollars that schools have been assigned and tasked with to create programming opportunities. And this might be a great opportunity to engage with school district leadership on what some of those academic support programs could look like, what some of those before and after school wraparound programs might look like to support K-12 programming. And it's a really opportune time to just kind of brainstorm. It's going to be an issue for the next year as we're still finishing out this current school year, going to summer programming. There will be some retention opportunities and some probably summer programming to capture some of that learning loss that needs to happen. And then obviously transitioning into another school year. It's always hard when these reports come out in the middle of a program year to try to make adjustments. So this will have impact for several years to come. But I think it's just important that we are aware of what's happening, that we know what's happening. I've included the link there. I'm happy to talk with you about ideas if you need suggestions or thoughts on what others have considered or what that landscape looks like. But I really think it's important that we're aware of those things. The other kind of major news is that the Great Start Readiness Program was drastically expanded in the last few years, and that had to do with a number of initiatives that were put in place to expand early childhood education and childcare access for families up to 300% of the poverty level that are eligible for GSRP. And statewide, the Department of Education sent out a memo, I believe it was last week, that there are still a large number of Great Start Readiness Program spaces available statewide. So this would be a great, again, opportunity to identify and look at families that you work with that might be in this space that you want to connect with or refer to those spaces. I even think that this could be helpful for our alternative and adult learners who maybe have children and are looking always for educational opportunities and childcare opportunities for them. Widespread, there are only actually 4 LEAs that have filled their quota, or I should say are above 95% of their quota. So there's still a large number of spaces available statewide. You'd have to check in your local area for that. But it's something to be cognizant of. It's something that we need to communicate with our partners and our families that we work with about some of these opportunities that are available to them. that we need to help them take advantage of to reduce a barrier for them. So any questions about that information? Great. On the alternatives and use side, there's several key and important updates. So please stay tuned into this section, and we almost could dig into a whole hour webinar on each one of these. But there are several key and very important things that have come out around alternative education in the last few weeks since the conference and since our last check-in. The first would be that all school districts have been, through COVID relief ESSER funds, have been awarded Title I-A funds to serve homeless students and youth. And so those school districts are going through the process of identifying those learners that can be served by those funds. Each district has received those. The link here tells you how much your district may have received, or your ISC or ESA if you're part of one of those. And so many of us, obviously, in the alternative education landscape are working with learners who might fall within that category. And so we need to be a part of that solution and that part of that programming within our district. And so it's important to find out about that within your district, who's in charge of that, what's happening, and how do our students be able to take advantage of those opportunities. So that has just come out in the last few weeks for additional guidance and funding around those opportunities. The second piece is that as a part of really trying to engage families and parents in their students' education, the Department of Education has released a special education family matter document, which really kind of goes over the basic elements of special education, the advocacy components as a parent, the advocacy components as a student, what rights and privileges you have if you qualify for special education services within the state of Michigan, and a little bit of on the federal side as well. But again, I do think that that's a real tool that we're aware of, that's out there, that families are being given as a resource, so that when we engage with conversations around these issues, we can continue to be advocates for our students, but also be informed about the information that they have and that's been given to them by the Department of Education. So please take time to review that if you work into that space and have special education services that you're providing. It would just be very important on the alternative side that you understand really what information is being sent to families. It really is just a review really of special education details, kind of a 101, if you will. So many of you probably could write the handbook on that, but it really is just kind of a fact sheet and informational document. The third biggest change, and this would impact both alternative and adult learning, is that the daily substitute teaching permit was limited to a 90-day teaching permit. And the Michigan Department of Education has, due to the educator shortage, has waived the 90-day limitation on substitute teaching permits through the end of the school year, which would either be June 30th or through August 17th, whichever program deadline comes first. So what this means is that if you have a professional, or if you're an educator yourself with a teaching permit, you're not limited to that 90-day window anymore. You could be placed and extended in that position. They would obviously recommend that that substitute has a mentor of some sort, so that they're receiving support and have administrative or other mentor teacher support during that time. But this is all, again, tied to the effort of trying to curb that educator shortage that we're experiencing, and not forcing educational entities to have to make drastic decisions halfway through the school year or at 3/4 of the school year when we don't have the staffing to continue forward. So again, the daily substitute teaching permit, the 90-day limitation has been waived. So if you have a substitute teacher who was within that permit currently, that they can be extended beyond that, and there's no limitation on the number of days. I've included the guidance for that, the link for that, so that you can see that and know what that is. I would anticipate that probably next year there will be some additional conversation about that, as well as additional conversations about how to accelerate teacher preparation programs, and even some support school staff programs. There's been talk about apprenticeship opportunities to engage people and accelerate those trainings. And it really is a statewide and a national problem as we look at the educator and professional shortage that we're facing in this area. The fourth component I wanted to share is that the FAFSA deadline for Michigan has been permanently extended by the Michigan Department of Education to May 1st. This is, again, another opportunity to try to capture more families, more historically underrepresented populations, and to give them more time to have the resources and have the time, the flexibility to complete the FAFSA. And that will be an ongoing deadline now of May 1st. That's important when you think about the school year and giving time for families to, especially if they're transitioning as a senior or transitioning as a student within their last semester or last 2 semesters transitioning. That's important that they have that time. The only caveat would be that obviously there are still many grants and many scholarships that have that deadline, and there are still opportunities, especially when we talk next about the Michigan Achievement Scholarship, where the more efficient you are with the completion of the FAFSA and getting that information in, the quicker you'll get into knowing what monies and dollars are available for continued study or training opportunities. So it's a double-edged sword, I think. I mean, it's a great opportunity, but also, waiting until April 30th or May 1st may not do every student the most credence. So it's an individualized approach, but it definitely will allow greater flexibility for the families that definitely need it. And the last thing I wanted to share was that, before I see there are questions in the chat that we can address, is that the Department of Education has also shared a graduation rate guidance documentation. In that document, I can go to that quickly. They've shared some resources about increasing graduation rate. They share a little bit of data about wanting to obviously curb absenteeism, try to provide additional academic enrichment and support. And this has to do with the fact that graduation increases have gone up. However, during the time of COVID, the number of graduation completers, or I should say graduates that transitioned then to post-secondary training drastically decreased. And so we're trying to balance statewide, what does that mean in terms of transitioning? How do we continue to build those supports? So they talk about the EWIM system, if you're familiar with that, the early warning intervention monitoring system, which I know many of our alternative learners programs are familiar with. Again, looking at the personalized curriculum and flexible learning options. I know we had Rochelle Bowerman at the fall conference, and she had a great session. And I would like to capture her in a tiny bottle and have her on my desk anytime I have a question about those things. She's really great. So please look at this. I would encourage you to look at that and think about ways that you can be a part of that, and at least share and articulate that you receive this information and have those conversations within your LEA that you're a part of if you're in that alternative setting. Any other questions or thoughts on any of that from the alternative landscape? Nope. And again, all of this information, the recording, the links will be sent to you so you have access to those things. I did also want to share about the biggest news that has passed and gone through with the passage of the state budget earlier this fall, and kind of the details have been still left to work out. But passed in that was something called the Michigan Achievement Scholarship. This is the single largest investment in college affordability and college scholarships in our state's history. I remember when I graduated from high school, they had the Michigan Merit Scholarship that was there. It was significant. It was a short-lived, however, but this is even larger than that opportunity there. It begins with this class of 2023, so that are graduating just here within the next few months, and provides annual scholarships for community college, private college, and university, and a public university. The scholarships are renewable for 3 years at a community college and up to 5 years at a private college or public university. So this is really groundbreaking. It is a part of the students' kind of academic profile, and really the most important piece here, as we've been working through this and learning about this, we've really been relying on our partners at the Michigan College Access Network, as well as the Institute for College and Access Success, TICAS, both of whom were at the fall conference, and I hope that you went to their sessions or at least had an opportunity to stop at MCAN's booth. They've been sharing this information and really being advocates in this space for this. The single most important thing that we can do right now is to encourage our students and adult learners that are interested in transitioning to post-secondary to complete the FAFSA. It's essential that we complete that information so that there's a really clear picture of the financial aid that they can have available to them. This is going to be built in as a component of that. It is not quite yet on the back end, as many things are ready, but in a few months it will be applied and applicable for that graduating class. So if you're in a setting where you're working with a learner, alternative or adult, and I'm going to talk about eligibility here in a second, it would be really critical that you ensure that those learners are completing the FAFSA in a timely fashion and have access to this. Any questions about this? Yes, so it would be the class of 2023 moving forward. Past students would have access to reconnect, or if they're currently enrolled in Futures for Frontliners. The other thing to consider is that there is still conversation about the classes of 2020, 2021, and 2022. But the first movement, or kind of a tiered approach, was that this would be for the future, and that perhaps there would need to be a second, some sort of scholarship statewide for the classes of 2020, 2021, and 2022. But that's still kind of on the drawing board, from what I know, so.
Patrick, someone put in here about GED or high set. If you get your equivalency, do you qualify?
Do. So let's talk about the eligibility. And all of this information was also included in our, I believe, our MACAE Monday update. If so, you have the slides from the Michigan College Access presentation, as well as the recording from it. So here is the eligibility requirements for the Michigan Achievement Scholarship. You have to complete the FAFSA. You have to demonstrate financial need, which, you know, if you're completing the FAFSA, many of us qualify now for those services because the provisions have been changed for family-based or individual-based income. You have to graduate from high school in Michigan in 2023 or after, or complete a certificate of high school completion or equivalency certificate in 2023 or after, which is great. They were intentional about including our adult learner population in that space. Here, however, are a couple of provisions that I do think, while it offers that opportunity for adults, may prevent some challenges for them, but I think part of this is just learning about this and working through it. You do have to enroll at an eligible institution within 15 months of graduation or earning that certificate. And you would also have to be enrolled full-time at the eligible institution. So some of us that were on this call were kind of messaging back and forth about awesome, but also seeing maybe some potential challenges, just being transparent about adult learners and the space that they have to dedicate. But I still think it's a great opportunity here, and they were very intentional about including and making sure that alternative and adult learners were included, and by keeping the language kind of open for that. You do have to be a Michigan resident. And if you are a dependent student, your parent or guardian must also be a Michigan resident. And any students who are incarcerated or in default on a previous federal student loan would unfortunately not be eligible. But the eligibility is there for our populations to be enrolled in the program. Any other questions? Oh, I see Christina has a question. Out of curiosity, if a student graduates with an alternative program, are there any specific scholarships or grants available? Christina, what you just mean a specific because they went through an alternative program? Or are you just saying in general?
Right. Yeah. No. Just specifically, if they went through a alternative program, if there was something out there not for previous students who graduated, or really any, I guess, overall. So I was just wondering if anyone knew of anything.
Not statewide, but I would encourage you within the individual, like your area may have a Promise Zone scholarship, whether the city of Romulus or other areas, Wayne County, Western Wayne County area. You may also have the College Access Network in your area may have some individual scholarships that students could apply for. I'm not sure which College Access Network serves your area exactly, but there could be something there. If there's like a community foundation, many of them have scholarships for graduates from the K-12 system. So those may be just, more, and that's pretty common in pretty much every municipality or regional county or regional area across the state. So I would at least start there.
Great. Thank you so much, Patrick.
But I hear the feedback on the classes of 2020, 2021, 2022. I was invited to a conversation about that, and I kind of shared that as well. And I do think that that may be something that is in the works down the road. I don't think this is the end of this trying to help as many people as possible transition to post-secondary, or at least have opportunities available to them.
Patrick, this is Pam from Fremont.
Hi, Pam. I thought you retired.
I kind of am. It's one of those adult ed retirement things. Could I assume that it's a good idea if someone's going to about to complete their GED to have them wait until after the first of the year, if possible, then, so they are the class of 2023?
So it would be with the class of 2023 would be within this school year, even, Pam. So if they completed the GED now, they would still be eligible because it starts with this academic school year class.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, very exciting. So we have asked both TCAS and MCAN to do a specific webinar for us, for MACAE and our populations. I would anticipate that will be probably in later January, February, maybe even early March as kind of this deadline comes. But again, a lot of the logistics have to be worked out on the state government side, and we all know how that can go sometimes with the funding apparatus and who gets what, where does this information go, that sort of thing. And I think there are some key partners that are kind of waiting for those pieces until they start doing more presentations. But the biggest thing right now would be to encourage that FAFSA completion component. All right, thank you for that. Just a couple adult education and IET, integrated education and training things I wanted to share. The first is that COABE, we renewed the COABE membership for all of us. So as MACAE members, again, you are automatically enrolled and renewed into COABE, which is the National Coalition on Adult Basic Education. And you are members of that association. That is a benefit that you have of being a part of MACAE as well. They have lots of great information they send out, as well as webinars that they do. And we're one of the states that has that available for all of our members. So something that they are continuing to advocate for is federal funding for adult education. This would be through WIOA, the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act. So they still have an opportunity for you to send a letter to your legislatures. I just did it yesterday. It calls for the maximum amount of funding. I think it's $810 million for national funding for WIOA, which would mean that in Michigan, we would see an increase as well. So that is something that I think we can all support. We all want additional resources to be able to do the work that we do. And it says one of those 3 clicks, you fill in your information and you send, it identifies your zip code, and then it sends the email to those legislators. It would send it to your congressional representative. It sends it to your state senators as well. So I would encourage you to do that. Obviously at the national level, the Congress is transitioning and going through quite a little bit of change here in the next few months. But one of the responsibilities that they have before they leave for the end of December is that they have to either extend the current year budget or pass a new budget going into 2023, excuse me. Otherwise, we will be in default. So now would be a great opportunity to send a letter to extend that and to expand the funding for adult education. The other piece is that the PIAC, which is a great data resource for adult education, they have a webinar on skills and qualifications for college educated immigrants and their economic impact. I know many of us are interested in that space and would like to learn more. I registered for the session, and so wanted to share that with you as an interesting kind of webinar. I believe it's coming up within the next week. And so if you're interested, you can register and sign up for that. Something else that's important to note is that the Michigan minimum wage is set to increase on January 1st. It will be increasing from $9.87 an hour to $10.10 an hour. This was put in place after passage of the Improved Workforce Opportunity Wage Act in Michigan, which was passed in 2018. So it makes these incremental increases, not only for minors, but for tipped employees. I've included the link there if you want more information on what that looks like, michigan.gov/wage hour. There is a little bit of an asterisk to all of this, is that there is some litigation happening right now to challenge not the wage increase as it stands, but from proponents who would like to increase the wage even more, because originally the wage was set to increase even more, and then the legislature at the time revised the wage increase lower. So through early February is when there is expected to be a decision on that. It could potentially increase even more, depending on the ruling from the state Supreme Court, or I think it's in a circuit court actually around that. So for now, the important thing to know is that the hourly wage increase for our state is increasing effective January 1st. We've been sharing this information out a lot, but I just think it's important as well, is that we sit on the Michigan Department of Insurance and Financial Services Health Insurance Enrollment Coalition. And it's really a coalition of stakeholders that are invested in reaching into the most marginalized populations, historically underrepresented, that typically don't have access to traditional pathways or systems. One of those is obviously healthcare access. And so we want to make sure that we're sharing out that there are healthcare resources. The health insurance marketplace open enrollment period is open right now. It's opened on November 1st and it's open until January 15th. So if you have families or even colleagues or learners that you work with that are in need of healthcare resources, we would encourage you to share this with them, so that folks that need to have access to quality health insurance can assess where they're at, can assess payment options for them, and look at some of the healthcare resources that are available to them. So the enrollment period is only open for about another month, a little over 5 weeks. So please share this information out. It's really important that we do that. There's a toolkit available here. There's a printable flyer if you would like that, to have that within your workspace. But I think that's really important that we just have that information available. Obviously, it's up to individuals to pursue that, but it's very important that we share this information out broadly. Any questions about what we've covered so far? All right. One of the last things that we wanted to share with you is that recently we released or updated and shared with the executive office and key members of the legislature our 2023 legislative priorities for the state budget. It calls for an increase across the board in a number of different opportunities for both community education investment and adult education investment. We have a more detailed document that we'll be sending out very soon. We've been fine tuning it and getting feedback both from other stakeholders as well as sharing initial drafts with our colleagues at the State Adult Education Office. We've been kind of communicating back and forth with the governor's office on a few things on this as well. But the essential piece is that we are going to need the full support of our members and our association as we go into January. It is critical that when we ask for support from all of you, that you respond and that you send an email. We'll probably be drafting some sort, and that you send that and that your colleagues do as well. Pretty much if every man and woman on the street that you see, please get them to send this, because it's so critical that our legislators and lawmakers hear and our policymakers hear from colleagues and from you all in the field. It's important that they hear from MACAE, and we can be a great advocate, but they really need to hear from you that these are resources that you've asked for that you need.
And
So
Patrick,
here's what the.
Can I
Yep,
add
go
one
ahead.
more? Sorry, this is where I get like, sick. This is the first time in a long time that Patrick has been on them since COVID about getting us in those ARP dollars. And they actually reached out to us that like, okay, now we're ready, here we are. So if we don't take advantage of this opportunity and we don't do what we say we're gonna do, if we get any or all of these opportunities, we won't get this opportunity again. And I'm not saying that for sure we're going to get half of this, but if we get anything, it's a step forward that we were able to do something with legislators on basically our own, advocating for this need. So I'm just going to have to, I beg, plead, make sure not only do you send to the legislators what we send out to send, if you have local legislators that you have good relationships with, once we officially send something, please get this to them, even if it's just a personal email to them. And then we have to make sure we follow through with what we say we're going to do. That's the critical piece. Please be proactive, be risk takers, and think about adding some of these incentives when they come, and be innovative. Otherwise, we could see a lot of changes in adult ed that we're not going to want to see. This is our opportunity to maintain our structures and improve them. I will get off my little.
You for that, Tammy. No, so let me kind of walk everyone through what we propose. There's more detailed documentation. We're not trying to short shrift what we're talking about here, but I'm cognizant of our time as well. So it makes investment in several different areas. And these areas are based on our statewide trends of adult education, the investments that we have balanced as professionals in the field and articulating the needs of our learners and the people that we serve, but also the needs of what our adult education and community education providers contribute not only to workforce development, but to the K-12 system. So the first investment would be around increasing access for integrated education and training opportunities, workplace literacy, on the job opportunities, covering the costs of what some of those trainings would be. There's more details within that, but I'm just kind of giving you a highlight. The second would be the largest investment that we've seen specifically around instructional delivery and student barrier support. That seems vague, but the point of it is that the investment there would be used for anything that falls within that category. So that would include staffing. That would include career navigation. That could include data management. That could include professional development resources. That could include technology resources or increased capacity for that. That it would be anything related to those subjects. The third component would be providers that are working with learners that are working on their high school completion or their high school equivalency. our partners across the state have articulated that we need more outcomes in those areas. And so this would help build that capacity for our existing providers and new that don't offer those services but want to increase those outcomes around completion and equivalency. The fourth is a very new concept that we're proposing. We took a lot of feedback. I want to thank all of our literacy partners that we are a part of our membership. Sometimes we forget about that adult basic education component as we talk about all these other outcomes and opportunities. So the Adult Literacy Opportunity Fund would be specifically for nonprofit providers that are serving some of the most least literate and those maybe not on an employment trajectory, and allowing them the capacity to build so that then those learners would transition to high school completion, high school equivalency, education and training, work, post-secondary opportunities, but they need that base foundational element in place. And perhaps they aren't ultimately going to be on a trajectory, but we still feel like that's a key component of adult education services in our state. And those areas and those providers provide that foundational programming support. The fifth one there is an opportunity for an innovation grant. Many times throughout a program year, we have providers that are approached about, here's an opportunity we'd like you to be engaged with, and there's not an opportunity to increase funding to fill that gap or to support that program expansion. And so this would be an opportunity to provide resources and dollars to those opportunities that pop up occasionally and really demonstrate that adult education providers have that flexibility, and they also have that really the competence to provide services, and we shouldn't let funding be a barrier to connecting and creating and expanding those partnerships. The sixth one, I know our community education partners will be glad to hear this, is we think that it's so important, especially when I just talked about the learning loss that we're seeing in the K-12 system and some of the other investments in before and after school, that we have to invest in our providers that are community education-based programs, that they have opportunities to support what's happening in the regular K-12 school system through before and after school programming, summer credit recovery programming, you name it. There really should be a space for that. And then the last component would be, we strongly feel that we need to transition away from the 23 plus grant program. Again, that was a provision that was created. I want to be mindful of the nuances of that and the long history of that. But essentially, the greater investment would be to see these dollars transitioned in other spaces of our adult education funding, and not to create a new funding opportunity that really has been limited in which providers have been able to access it. And then a majority of the funding actually goes to Graduation Alliance. And we really feel like the resources would be better allocated to move into Section 107 or WIOA matched funding. And so that is kind of the spaces that we be going in. And those that have received 23 plus, we've talked about that for a while now. So
And the fact that they don't have the same performance outcomes. They don't have the same.
And the performance
accountability.
outcomes are different for that company out of Utah. So more details to come on all of these, more in-depth information on all of this will be sent out. But I really, as we go into the new year, I think it's so important that you please stay engaged with us. We're going to call on you for your support. We need that support, and we need this articulation in these areas. There can be no excuse for not involvement and staying engaged with us. We need it. We will also be, before the end of the year, the new list of legislative leaders we will send out. I'm working on an email for those of you that have programming that intersects within those districts of those legislative leaders, that you know, here is someone that is really could be an advocate for us, and we need you to be engaged with us in that space. So we're coming to the end of our time. It is 10 o'clock. I want to be mindful of this. I will circle back to the questions on this but I do want to close out for those that need to leave. So I see your hand up, Mike. I'll come back to it in just a second.
Thank you.
But just wanted the last thing to share, and then we'll come back to the funding discussion, is these are some of the things we're looking forward to in the new year. Certainly, we're seeing the legislators shift. It will be the House and the Senate will now be controlled by the Democrats. That's a major shift and change from Republican caucus that we've seen lead for the last several years. Obviously, we'll be digging into these legislative priorities that we've just been sharing with you. We're also working on an opportunity with the Michigan College Access Network to create college level examination preparation testing sites all across the state. So for those learners that want to transition to post-secondary, how can we create the funding mechanism for our members to serve as testing sites to just create a better, holistic, safe, welcoming environment to allow those testers to possibly test, gain college level preparation credits, and then transition to post-secondary. It helps us, it helps the learner, it helps the college access and transition. And then the last would be, we are still working on the apprenticeship grant that I've talked about for months now. And that grant should be released in the early part of next year. And I would encourage you, we'll have more webinars and information about this, but that is coming. And please just kind of, again, keep that on your radar as an opportunity if you serve adult learners that are interested in transitioning or into apprenticeship. So with that, I'll say goodbye to those that need to leave for a 10 o'clock meeting. Thank you for joining us. And we'll come back to the funding discussion here. Wishing you all a happy holidays, and we will see you in the new year. Take care. Thank you all so much. And we'll go back to you, Mike.
Yeah, thank you, Patrick. While I respect, the group's decision regarding the 23 plus, so I'm sure a lot of conversation went into it and so forth. I wasn't part of that, but I'd be really hesitant to offer up any money, at least for those programs that apply for that. They're allowed to do it. You can still do all those other things, plus a lot of additional things in the program that you can't with the current funding that we have. This is the first time I applied for it this year. I don't know if I'll get it or not. We're supposed to know by the 16th of December. But the reason I did was because I'm looking at it as a way to use the money to do some of those things you listed above that, plus as a way for the English as second language foreign college transcriptions, to use money for that, because we have a big need to do that. And so, I would hesitate to offer giving money up if they only give us one of those things plus then, or switch it just for that, then, what have we really gained? The message to me would be, if I were a legislator, the message would be, well, all right, they really don't need that $2.5 million they got this year. So why are they asking for this stuff? Because they can do it with that money. I mean, I'm all for the other points, but I would not offer anything up. That's just my opinion. I've been working with legislators for many years and K-12 and all that sort of thing. Because the point I want to get across them is we need additional money to do additional things, to grow programs and so forth. And I wouldn't want to hear that, well, you don't need that. Well, you might not need some other things either then,
I appreciate that, Mike. I think the important thing that we want to articulate for this legislative cycle is that in the last legislative cycle, it was articulated that no one in the state of Michigan over the age of 23 can earn a high school diploma. And that's not an accurate fact. That is why this program was created, is because an outside statewide entity came into the state to tell the legislator at the time, several legislators ago, and it's been continued on, that was a fact. And in fact, it's not a fact. And so that is kind of where our stance has been, is that, well, if we can't reduce the funding in terms of restricting it to those providers like you that do award a high school diploma or equivalency, then it's not advantageous to keep it there, because then it undercuts the really the educational entities that are providing the services that are using state dollars, employing state workers, employing state professionals that have gone through a teacher preparation program that are awarding Michigan credit and Michigan diplomas, by having an outside entity that does none of those things be able to receive funding in place. So
I agree with that rationale. You know, like I said earlier, I understand that. And I knew the history of it. In fact, there was somebody in West Michigan here in our group who discovered that and really started researching and asking questions about that. And so and this year, though, $1 million more was added for the use of that 23 plus through the school districts who apply for to have high school completion programs. And I just as long as they understand that, you know, that the message comes across as that. In other words, we really want to swap it up for something else. I get that.
Like it is in the details in the actual letter. There's more detail about
Yeah. Okay.
with it, and the
Yeah.
money's to be shifted because it's really a duplication of services, right? And over half of it
Well,
goes
maybe-
to this
maybe
other
the-
entity that doesn't even have a Michigan diploma.
Yeah. Maybe the thing to do is reword it. So
Well,
maybe,
Patrick can share the entire actual verbiage with you because you're
Yeah.
only seeing the bullet. You're not seeing the rationale below it. That's in
right.
there.
I guess even with the bullet, because legislators aren't going to read all that stuff. They're going to look at the bullet points basically and make decisions based on that. They might ask some questions on that. I would just say shift the funds rather than how was it worded? Drop the or eliminate the funds. Maybe use the word shift the funds and then state the area you want to shift it to. You know, it could be a couple of those other things. Show them that that's how you want to use the money instead. When you look at the bullets, that doesn't come across that way, at least not
So
to me.
shift the funds due to duplication of services
Yes.
instead of remove the funding from.
Yeah, we want the funding for something, but we just don't want it the way it is that way currently.
So remove it by shifting it.
Well, yeah, essentially, because that's what you want to do. You want to shift it to the other points above for those activities, right?
thank you, Mike. Any other questions, comments before we close out?
But thank you for taking the question. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mike.
Patrick, this is Michael Evans, Kalamazoo Literacy Council. I do appreciate that inclusion of the adult or literacy funds. That's something we've been talking about for quite some time. And I'm hopeful that we might be able to get a group of literacy councils and maybe the Coalition of Adult Literacy Michigan to really focus on amplifying the necessity for that and see if we can just have a concerted effort to make sure that those literacy councils that have asked for that type of support can be involved in being an advocate for that. So I'd be very interested in working with those literacy councils that want to do that to see if we can bring some renewed energy and greater emphasis on that particular item of these recommendations.
And Michael, I'll just ask that when you're amplifying that one to please still include all of those areas as the adult education programs that aren't eligible for that will be including the whole package.
Of course. That will be part of what the requirements would be if we were to get this group together, is to say, of course, we want to amplify the entire priority list, but many of these literacy councils have been somewhat absent from these conversations because they have not felt that these conversations would be beneficial to them. So if they've been sitting out, this is not the time to do so. If anything, this is the rare opportunity to be able to help and be a part of the collective adult education agenda in a way that really would be beneficial for them. So I want to be a part of that group, and maybe we can talk more about how we can organize that. But I think that this is a very good sign, and it's something that at least I know I've been asking for quite some time. It'd be great to see this happen.
And Patrick, I don't know if you already said it, I'm sorry, the turnaround time, like we're gonna get this letter out to everybody, get the 3-click up and running. And do you know what the governor's office, like what the turnaround to have time to advocate for this was gonna be? Like just
So-
January or like the 1st of January? I mean, it's
Yeah,
quick, right?
about a month's time.
It's
You
gonna
know,
be quick,
the
and the timing of the holiday is gonna impede it a little bit, so.
yeah, the executive office is scheduled to release their budget in February. So
So we gotta move.
mid-February. I would also anticipate, and this will be a conversation with Oogie and our advocacy group about probably having a a day on the Hill and having a space where we need to go in probably February or March. And we haven't done that in a while for a variety of reasons. Obviously, COVID was one of them, but I would also think having an event like that to support some of
Yeah,
these things where
We
we're
really- we need to do it like February if we want to try to get it to impact the budget too. No
Mhm.
pressure, Oogie.
Yeah, with our new people,
Thank you,
again,
Mike.
I think the big difference is the whole party that we did afterwards and stuff was kind of where we may want to eliminate and just focus on time meeting with legislators in their offices that way. I think would be more efficient. So
Any other questions, comments from anyone? All right, well, we will sign off. Thank you all. Hope you have a wonderful end to 2022. Look forward to seeing everybody in the new year.
Merry Christmas to everyone. Ciao.
Happy holidays, everyone. Take care.
Merry
Bye-bye.
Christmas, Mike.